Hey, welcome back to our podcast, your go-to source for all things real estate and lifestyle in the heart of Fort Worth, Texas. I'm Jackson Christian Berry.
And I'm Jean Kristen Berry.
And together we're here to guide you through the vibrant world of Fort Worth and surrounding suburb living.
We believe in creating a community where everyone feels at home. And that's why we're committed to bringing you honest, expert advice in a fun and friendly way. From the bustling streets of downtown to the serene suburbs, we've got the scoop on what makes each area unique.
Each week we'll dive into the latest market trends, offer tips for both buyers and sellers, and share insider knowledge to help you make informed decisions. So whether you're a first-time home buyer, a seasoned investor, or just curious about some of the Fort Worth charming neighborhoods, you're in the right place. Let's jump into today's episode. Well, hey folks, and welcome back to Welcome Home Fort Worth. We are so excited that you have joined us again for today's episode.
Yes, we are.
We have been doing this since we've started, and it's something that I felt was really important for folks. Every single month, what we always want to do is we want to provide people the chance to have a refresher course in how to sell their home or how to buy their home. Because for the statistic would say it's somewhere between 7 to 12 years, the average homeowner, that's how long they live in their home. And so if you're a home seller, you probably haven't done this in a while. You probably haven't been through this process in a while. A home buyer, perhaps you're a first-time home buyer. You've never done this before, or you're just somebody who, again, you bought a home, you got to go buy another home, and so you don't know how to do this. And at that point, you probably have the thing we've got to figure out, which is how to sell and then buy at the same time.
And if you're a first-time home buyer, you know, like 35 to 40% of our sales are first-time home buyers.
Yeah. First-time home buyers are so fun to work with. Yeah. We love it.
We do like them.
We love them. They're a lot of fun. So it's a lot of education along the way. So today what we want to do, we're going to basically walk you through what we do with folks when we sit down with them, which is just what we call a buyer consultation. And it's really just a buyer strategy session. So what we do is we sit down and we educate first. We talk people through what it looks like to buy a home, how you go about doing it. We educate on market conditions that are going on. We've already done that for this month. As you're seeing this, check out the February's market update month. That's our most recent market update. We'll do a new one coming in March for the month of, we'll film it in March for the month of March. Yeah. That's right. Anyway, sorry. Getting caught up on our recording date, excuse me. But we just wanted to give you a chance to be reminded of what it looks like to do this and how to go about it, the important things along the way. For me, the biggest thing I always talk through all of my buyers with is the costs along the way. I think that is so crucial to understanding everything that goes on. I think it's also, to be honest with you, probably like very unnecessarily difficult to get a real answer to the costs that come your way.
That's a good point.
And so as close as we can get you to that is the way I want to be. It'll still be, there's still a little bit of range because we just can't, we're not in control of all the costs along the way. But we'll get you as close as we can. So all that to say, we're talking home buying today, how to home buy. That's kind of fun to say. How to home buy. And we're just kind of going in
That's
detail.
very country.
This is very country. This is your refresher on how to buy a house. So first off, we're going to always recommend this. Talk with a realtor. Get your realtor. Your realtor is kind of like your head coach.
Manager.
Your project manager. That's even better. Yeah. Your project manager. Our job is to put the pieces together for you. And so who's your mortgage person going to be? Do you need a mortgage person? Or how are we going to get proof of funds? Who's your title person going to be? Or are we using the other listing agent title company? Cool. Let's figure out who the person is there that we're going to talk with. Who's your inspector going to be? Who's your... appraisers are more of a lender thing. Just the people you're going to be involved with in this process.
We're assembling your team.
Yeah. And of course, and so we're helping you build that. We're getting you together with that. And so we want to sit down and we want to have a conversation with you to basically figure out what you need, what your timeline is like, and so that we can then proceed in the way that you specifically need to proceed in buying your next home.
Yeah.
So we'll sit down, have something like this where we work you through everything. And then at the end of it, we'll sign a buyer's representation agreement so that we can begin working on your behalf. Following that, it just kind of kicks off. If you're not pre-approved yet, we need you to get pre-approved. You have to get pre-approved.
That's one of the most important aspects.
This is one of the biggest things we run in with folks who just want to go see a home, right? If you want to go see a home, look, I want to go see every home too. They're awesome. If you want to purchase that home, you're going to find that home day one. And if you are, if you're in love with the home, you fall in love with it, but you aren't pre-approved, you're a step behind. The listing agent and the seller will not see your offer as serious if we do not share with them the pre-approval along the way.
And that happens more times than
It should.
time.
Pre-approval is a simple process. You're just talking to a loan officer or whoever you decide to go to. We recommend a loan officer that we've done a podcast with. Go check that out. Just get pre-approved. And if you can, go ahead and consider underwriting and all that as well to begin that process, because it just sets you a step ahead. So that gets your finances in order. The reason for that, you may have done some online calculator. I hear that a lot to figure out what you can afford.
Yes.
That's great. That doesn't matter. It does not matter. And we cannot sell the Google or whatever online service you use to the listing agent to accept our offer, to get our offer in. So let's get you, verified almost in that way, certified, pre-approved and all that, because it's going to let you know, not only, first off, the listing agent will know that you're serious, which is great. It's also going to let you know what your shopping budget is. And so that's really important for us because as much as we all love to go see those massive, mansions, if you were only approved up to 500K or something like that, you just, we'll find as big a mansion as we can find you, 500K or less, because that's just all you can do.
Well, and we find that gives you confidence. I mean, there's so much more confidence when you know exactly what your monthly payment's going to be. You know what you can qualify for. You know what you can put an offer in for. It makes it easy for you to push the button and say that I want that house. Yeah, of
course. Yeah, and we want it to exactly. We want you to be able to just say, I want it. This is the one for me. And then all we do is just write the offer and submit it. There's no extra work we have to do at that point. So pre-approval is your next step. Then it's all about writing good offers and getting our contract. We have a whole episode about how we go about writing offers. So I highly recommend you check that episode out. But we're going to write you a good offer, an offer that makes sense for you. We're going to talk you through all of the terms that you can potentially cover if you want to sweeten the deal for the seller. If we're in multiple offer scenario, that is a whole different conversation that we have to have with you. At that point, it does become, what's your best offer? What is the offer that you can submit where you're going to feel okay if you still get beat out, right? That's the conversation we have to have with you at that point. So you submitted your offer. We helped you write up your offer. You found the house you loved. You saw homes, right? You found the house you loved. You submitted your offer on that home that you fell in love with. And let's just say it gets accepted, okay? That offer got accepted. This kicks off your first timeline that you've been under in this process, okay? Unless, of course, unless your lease is up or you've got some other personal timeline going on. This kicks off your first timeline. Option fee and earnest money, okay? Real quick, your earnest money is legally required in the state of Texas as to validate the contract. It's your consideration. The seller provides their home as consideration for the contract, and then you have to provide something to validate on your end so that you both have stakes in the contract.
And that's your earnest.
And that's your earnest money, which is typically in Texas, in DFW, I should say. I don't really know about Texas in general, but in DFW where we are, it's 1% of the purchase price. So if you offered $500K for the home, it's going to be $5,000, okay? You can sweeten that. You can take that up. It's all negotiable, but typically we see 1%, right? You can do 2%, you can do 3%. We can talk you through those strategies and what that means, but typically 1%, right? So as you are planning about the house you want to afford, this is your first cost along your way, okay? This does go towards your closing cost. It's almost a deposit in a way. You're almost prepaying some of your closing costs with this, okay? Unless we get out of the contract for a reason we shouldn't have.
Right.
Then the seller is able to hold your earnest money, okay? But if we got out for a allowable reason within the contract, then you get your earnest money back. Okay?
And your agent will protect that.
Yes. Or have the conversation. If you were just done, and we will have the conversation and say, hey, you're gonna lose your earnest money here, right? You're out that $500,000 in that situation. Probably, honestly, if you pull out for a reason not allowed in the contract, you're probably opening yourself up to legal fees as well. So and legal
we will recommend an attorney consultation.
We will recommend you talk to somebody that deals with that, not us. But we'll recommend it for sure. So that's your earnest money, okay? So that's the first thing that's due. You have 3 days to get your earnest money to the title company. Along with this, you're going to get your option fee, okay? Real quick, the option period, you don't have to do one. I want to be very upfront about that. It is not something you have to pay for, okay? It is something I think you're crazy not to pay for, okay? I just want to be real upfront about that. Your option period is where we're going to do your things like your inspection. And what the option period does is it gives you, it's negotiable, 5, 7, you can sweeten it. The seller likes it when it's shorter, right? So you can do a 3-day if you so decide. But you typically between 5 and 7 days is what we usually see.
Yeah.
So your option period gives you can get the option to get out for any reason you want to get out. You do not have to get out for a legally allowable reason in the contract. You can just say, hey, you know what? A buyer's remorse, I'm out. Totally okay.
Found another house.
Totally okay. Yep. Yeah, whatever you want, you can get out of it. The only thing you lose is this option fee. Okay. So earnest money is your consideration for the contract to be valid. Your option fee is typically, usually it's $250 to $500. That's the typical range you see. There are ways, again, it's negotiable. We can sweeten that. The seller loves it when it's higher because if you're going to pull out of the contract, it's going to be during this option period. Usually, I think it's like, you know these stats. It's like 60-year.
It's like 60, 70%.
Yeah.
If it's going to fall out, it's going to fall out during the inspection. Yeah.
So you're doing an option period. Again, that's negotiable. It's all negotiable, but I'm going to tell you what's typical, right? Typically, it's 5 to 7 days, and it's usually $250 to $500. Okay, that you say, hey, seller, I'm going to pay this amount of money to give me the access to this ability to get out for any reason I want.
And if you get out, the seller will keep that option fee.
But if you don't and you stay through to closing, then again, that's just a prepayment to your closing costs, right? You're just paying some of your closing costs up front, okay? So that's your first two things, your first two financial things that have happened in your first timeline, okay? 3 days to get those things submitted to the title company, okay? You can do that a couple different ways. That can be through your sometimes the title company, every title company is different. Sometimes it's through
They have an app.
Sometimes they have an app. Zachem is usually the one they use. If they don't have that, then you actually have to bring a check to them and stuff. So.
I think you can wire sometimes.
Usually, yeah. But again, it depends on title company. So the first thing title company does when we're under contract is they send you those instructions, or they should. And if they don't, we'll get on them. So we will be on them, don't you worry.
We're going to meet those timelines.
We're going to make it happen because you have to.
That's project management.
Yeah, that's our job. That's what we do.
Job.
Okay, so first two things, okay? So first finances and first timeline, okay? Your second timeline, we'll call it, okay? Yeah. And your second fee is your option period, okay? 7 days or 5 days. That was negotiated in the contract that the seller accepted, okay? So for our sake, we'll say we put 7 days in the contract. 7-day option period, so that's our new timeline. We have 7 days to figure out if we want this house or not, okay? Before we then only have a couple more outs along the way, okay? So that's second timeline, excuse me. And your second cost is your cost of getting an inspection, okay? Again, you don't have to do either of these two things. I just highly recommend it. I highly recommend you do this. That inspection is usually just a general inspection. You can have as many inspections as you want. You can have engineers, roofers. You can do it as intensely as you want.
You have granddad, grandmom.
Anything you want.
Uncle Jim, anybody can come look at that house.
Or contractor versions of those people, whatever.
Yes.
So
awesome. The seller wants a licensed person.
Yes. Yeah, that's the better.
to support
and
your
we want that
request.
for you too, so that you have that education for sure. Yeah. Anyway, so traditionally it's a general inspection that's done. Every inspection is different, and it's usually based on square footage. And so usually you're talking, I'll give you a wider range than I kind of want to, but just to be safe, because it really does depend. You're probably looking somewhere between 300 to 700, I'm going to say, in that range, depending on the size of your home and any upgrades that you want for that inspection. Do you want them to check out sprinkler systems? Do you want them to check out septics? Any engineers, you can have an engineer come out to do a whole separate kind of inspection. Okay. Lots of different options there. It's just a matter of what you want to know more about with that home. We're always going to recommend, at the very minimum, the general inspection and a wood destroying insects. Those two things are so you need to make sure that those things are covered and that you are covered in light of those things. So inspection, that's our second cost. Again, 300 to 700. I'm sorry, that's such a wide range. I want to give you more closer. You can find inspectors who bid. We recommend property doctors. We do a lot of business with property doctors. And we'll probably have Brad on, sometime soon to the podcast because he's just amazing. But you can go to their website and check out their pricing and just kind of get a preliminary thing if you're considering this. But I'll have that conversation with you, of course, as we talk through the process.
Hey everyone, real quick before we get back to the show, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, we'd love to connect with you. We post a lot of content like this in case you miss an episode, along with more Fort Worth and surrounding suburb local insights and finds. You can find our team at the Christenberry Group on all social platforms, or you can connect with Jackson and I personally on our Facebook and our Instagram accounts. Just be prepared for lots of pictures of my grandson on either account. Now back to the show.
So let's say inspection finds something, let's say first off, a couple of different scenarios. Inspection doesn't find anything, which it never happens. They always find something. But it wasn't a big deal maybe.
Even in new construction.
Even in new construction. Especially in new construction.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, especially in new construction. Y'all getting, Brad, I was just talking to him last week. He was saying on their calendar right now, for property doctor's inspection, it was like almost all new construction inspections, which is fantastic, y'all.
Yep.
Like it's great. Get in early when you can. So good stuff. Sorry, tangent there. Important for y'all to know though. All right, so inspection flag things wasn't that important. You then decide to move forward in the contract without asking the seller to fix anything because nothing was that big a deal. Okay, it's in your opinion, of course. So that's one option you can do. Okay. Second scenario, we find something in the inspection that's worthy of either asking seller concessions, so money towards your closing costs, or repairs to actually be done. Right. You can kind of do either of those scenarios, and so you'll ask the seller for those two things in the light of something that comes up in the inspection that you think is like, hey, this needs to be covered.
And a lot of people say, well, how am I going to know what I should ask for or how much it might cost and all that?
Yep.
So there's several ways. We see a lot of inspection reports and we see a lot of repairs and repair costs.
Yeah.
So we can give you some ballpark information on that. Plus we can identify the things that are going to be the things that stand out that we're going to say, they really should fix this, or this is something that's pretty normal for a seller to do.
Yeah, we'll help you know the normalcy for sure.
Yeah,
and the inspector will too. The inspector will say, hey, like this is the thing I think is most, not most serious, but this is one of the things that I see that's important to know.
Yeah, and we go off the inspector's recommendation.
Of course, always.
He's the guy.
He's the guy, or engineer, or whoever you have gotten in your home.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've negotiated, and we've taken our request to the seller. Seller can say no, y'all. Just keep that in mind. Seller can say no. When they say no, they risk you leaving though, and they know that, or they should know that. Their agent should be talking about that. So if they say no, you are given two scenarios. You either decide to stay in anyways and just move forward through the option period, or you say no, I'm out, peace. You lose your option period, you lose your option fee. The seller keeps that, and then you're back on the market. We're looking for more homes. Okay. In the event that the seller says yes, or does some kind of renegotiations where they counter and they say, hey, instead of $5,000 in concessions, I'll do $2,500 or something. And you guys agree, then we move forward in the contract. Okay, we are headed towards closing. All right, next step.
Next step.
There's a lot of stuff that kind of happens here. It's kind of a smorgasbord of things. It's really just tying up loose ends there are survey things we got to consider. There are a lot of detailed things that, again, as project managers for you, we're going to make sure that it gets handled well. But it's nothing necessarily that you'll really be aware of, or remember when the transaction's done.
Probably for most buyers, it's really just inspection, appraisal, and then closing.
Yeah, and like the loan phases that come along that is what I noticed. Like, because your loan goes through 4 phases. You got pre-approval, you've got underwriting, you've got loan approval, and then you've got funding, right? So those are also the 4 phases that kind of go along with with the transaction process. But anyways, just to know, there will be things that happen kind of behind the scenes. A lot of signing documents is what you'll be doing during this time to say that you've seen the right paperwork that the contract wants to make sure that you've seen, et cetera. So title kicks in a lot right here. Title really makes sure that all the ducks are in a row and that legally this transfer of ownership is happening the way it should be and is logged effectively in that way.
Yeah, they make sure there's no liens against the property so that there's clear title at that point. And make sure you have title insurance so that in case something comes up later after you buy it, that they'll be able to take care of that and clear that lien. They'll do things like, order a home warranty. So if you negotiated that with your seller.
Yeah, or you just want one.
Yeah, or you just,
So there's a lot of things that happen right here, but we'll say you probably want to start shopping home insurance. I would assume. So start shopping your home insurance. We've got a whole episode about home insurance on our podcast. Check that out. Shane did a great job. And in your home warranties, like you said, if you negotiated one, so the seller gave you money towards a home warranty, or you just want one, we'll be sending you. We can send you vendors if you got a vendor that you want to use. Obviously, you can do that.
And those are usually for a year.
Yeah.
and cover some things on the house. There's always little things,
Read the fine print. We always recommend read the fine print. Make sure you know what's actually covered, right? My wife and I, just as an example, we bought a house. We bought a house. We did buy a house, but we bought a couch just from, it was from Living Spaces maybe or something like that. Yeah. We got the warranty on
Nebraska?
It. No, not Nebraska, unfortunately. I sure let go on there though. So this couch comes with like the things that this warranty says, we'll replace the couch or we'll fix the couch in these scenarios, but like it's the most minimal stuff, y'all. It's like to me reading it, it was like, okay, if a wine glass spills perfectly on and hits this corner over here, but it wasn't already damaged by a slight little cut from a dog's toenail, then like it's just all of these really fine print stuff, right? That's just like, y'all, come on. So just make sure you read the fine print. That's all that's to say for home warranties. So if you are a cash offer, you do not need an appraisal. Appraisal is the lender saying, hey, appraiser, go check out the property. Tell me, I'm giving them this amount of money for this property. I want to make sure that you, the appraiser, say that it's worth that amount of money. Does that make sense? And so your job, it's a whole lender thing that happens there.
It's protecting the lender.
It's protecting the lender and making sure they're not giving you $1 million to go buy something that's only worth $200K. Does that make sense? Excuse me. They want to make sure that they aren't upside down in this deal.
Right. And that usually is a cost of around $400 to maybe $500, something like that.
I see it closer to $600 sometimes too.
Is it sometimes?
So it just depends on where it is, how many square footage and all that kind of stuff.
And that's something that you pay the lender, and then the lender will get that ordered and taken care of. Yeah,
and we'll make sure that they do that. We'll make sure that they are staying on top of that and tracking that for you on your behalf.
Yeah. So, and if it comes back low, are you going to address that?
You go ahead. You're excited about this. Come on.
So if your house is $250,000 and let's say the appraisal comes back at $230,000, there's a $20,000 difference there. So that has to be taken care of somehow.
Yeah. Let's do the scenarios real quick if that's okay. So scenario one, your appraisal comes back. You're buying this house at $250,000. It says the house is worth $300K, right? You now have 50. You just got $50K of equity day one, right? Good. You should go celebrate and buy a lottery ticket because like you're just luckiest person in the world right there. But you have day one equity, which means like technically you could go sell the home tomorrow, make that based on what it's worth. Now there's a difference between appraised value and market value. I want to make that very clear. The appraiser may say it's worth this, but the market may not think it's actually worth that, right? Yeah. But that's a possibility. So scenario one is it met value or was over value, and so you're good, right? So that's scenario one. Scenario two is it comes in low.
It comes in low.
So what do we do?
A $20,000 gap, and so there's options here too. Either the seller can bring the price down $20,000. The buyer can bring extra money to the table, $20,000 extra cash, or there can be some negotiation. Yeah. And either side can give in a little, negotiate back and forth.
70-30, 50-50,
any of that.
Yeah, whatever.
If for some reason you can't reach an agreement, then you as the buyer can get out of the contract based on the appraisal not appraising.
Yes, and the reason for that is because at the very front end, one of the things we submit with your offer is it basically says this offer is contingent upon you receiving financing. And so if the home can't be purchased by your financing because it doesn't meet appraisal, then you can't purchase the home. Right. So you have an out there. Again, the only thing you've lost at that point is your option fee. You'll still get your earnest money back.
Correct. Yeah. So that's another negotiation, which is another reason why when you're negotiating the repairs up front and also the pricing up front,
good point.
don't go for the juggler really, really, really hard.
Because you may have to keep negotiating. That is always the conversation, right? Like you want to go and you want to get what you want, but you have two negotiations you've got to get through, right? Like
you have several.
Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. You do have several. So there are other things that come up along the way sometimes too. Yeah. But you have two main ones, I would say.
Yeah. We've seen that before where somebody went too hard for the juggler. Yep. And they were super excited on the front end. Yep. But then when it got to the back end, it was closing and they needed another week or they needed something special that the seller wouldn't give it.
Seller said, you know what? Either they're pissed off and they just don't want to deal with it, or they said, you know what? I can get another buyer who will give me the terms that I want that you didn't do, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So
you have to kind of temper all that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
All that.
Yeah, and I think we did an episode on that. If we haven't, we need to.
Win-win kind of a deal.
Well, the seller thermometer I've got.
Yes.
So my analogy is always, y'all, when you consider your asks, you have a great. Tell me, I always forget. It is broken, worn.
Oh yeah, cosmetic, broken, and worn.
Yeah, so broken, cosmetic, worn, and then the more you so broken at the bottom, cosmetic, and then worn. If you've got a seller thermometer of their anger level that you put next to that, the more that if you're asking for cosmetic things, they'll be a lot more angry at you. If you're asking for them to paint a room or something like that. Then if you're asking for something that's broken, money towards it, or for them to fix it, they understand. Yeah. Most people will, unless they're just irrational, and then they're just irrational. But most folks understand, they knew going into it that was going to be an issue,
right? Because
they knew it was broken. If it's a window, if it's an AC unit, or whatever, that has to be covered, or it needs to reflect price.
Yeah,
they know.
Absolutely.
So that's the appraisal. You got everything negotiated. You're moving forward, right? Let's say you know everything's good to go. You're moving forward. And then we're just trucking towards closing. We're just headed to the closing table. There are still some things that need to happen, particularly with your loan. Your loan needs to be approved. Yeah, the appraisal is kind of the final step of that, or one of the final steps. Your loan needs to be approved. So you're going to have some lender documents to check on during that time. Title's kind of wrapping things up on their end with their stuff, making sure everything's ordered and
the lender
covered.
might ask for some more
documentation just to make sure your finances are in order. But it's really tying up loose ends. It's really where we're at that point, because you're headed towards closing. And so we've got some deadlines that we have to meet on our end that are just, things that we put in the contract on the front end to make sure that we meet. But
you start looking at getting your utilities connected. We'll remind you about that. You already talked about insurance.
Yeah, scheduling movers if you're using movers.
Yep.
If not, scheduling the family to come by and scheduling the pizza to be ordered and stuff for all of the moving day fun.
That's right.
Depending on how you're doing it. And then we're to closing. So at closing, you're just going to sign on the buyer side, especially if you're using financing, you're going to sign a lot of documents. My wife and I counted 98 signatures our first time. And we were using, I think the first time we used an FHA. And so there were some additional documents with all that. So you'll sign documents. You will really, that's kind of it at closing. We're gonna make you be kind of a full.
Bring the money.
Bring the money for sure. Yeah, make sure you've got all your closing costs and your checks, and if you haven't already wired, that's a title for sure. We're gonna make you be a full on we're gonna celebrate the moment with you. Get pictures, get videos of you signing and stuff, because we're so excited for you, and we've obviously been so thankful to join you in this journey. And then the last thing is you sign, you walk away. You don't own the home just yet. Hopefully the title gave you keys, so hope you're good there, but you don't own the home just yet. Your loan technically has to fund. Traditionally, with our lenders that we use, we use lenders that we really trust. Traditionally, they will get that funded within the next hour or two. But your loan has to fund before you officially own that property. So don't go from closing table to the house.
Yeah, don't go with the moving truck to the house.
Exactly. You want to make sure it funds first, and then you can go take over and do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And then sometimes a term that can be negotiated in the contract is a lease back. And so basically the seller didn't want to, you're closing on a Friday and the seller couldn't get to their new place until the next Friday. And so they got a week lease back. And so obviously those, you'll follow the rules of whatever you negotiated on the front end.
Right.
But really,
with the lease, yeah. Like you don't just go run over there and in and out of the house the whole time during that week. So
yeah, but you bought the house. I mean, at that point you're closed. Your mortgage payment, you traditionally will not start until a month after. So basically, if you buy on February 15th, your first payment's not due until April 15th. Is what usually happens. Check with your lender to make sure that that's how they're doing it, of course. But that's really it, y'all. So like I said, the goal of this episode is really just to be a refresher. It is just to remind you and to have a place where you can come, as you consider buying houses, to get more information. We provide you all of these podcast episodes for the whole point of just trying to help you feel on top of this big decision that it is to move and to purchase a big asset like a home. And so we want to help you feel as on top of it and as confident as you can be. And so we hope that this helps you in that journey.
Absolutely. Take this information and make a wonderful decision.
Yeah, let's do it. So if you have any more questions, if you have any specific questions about your scenario, let us know. We're glad to have those kind of conversations with you, of course. But in the meantime, y'all just, let's do it. Let's just hope this is helpful.
Yeah, let's get your new house.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Thank you all. We'll see you back next week. Hey, thank you so much for watching the podcast today. If this has been valuable for you at all, we sure could use your help getting the word out to more people. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go ahead and give us a follow and consider taking just maybe 2 minutes to leave us a review. Both do wonders for our show with the algorithm, and on both platforms, all you gotta do, head over to our show page. On Spotify, hit the 3 dots and select rate. And on Apple, all you gotta do is just scroll down to the show and say leave a review. So just click that. If you're seeing this on Facebook or Instagram, a like or comment puts all the good vibes out in the algorithm for us. And on YouTube, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can be notified whenever we post a new episode. Join us again next week for more Fort Worth housing news and updates. Until then, y'all have a great week.